So good morning to everybody. A very warm welcome to this online information day or days relating to Horizon Europe Cluster 6 that covers food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and the environment. My name is Paul Webb. I'm the head of Department Green Europe of the Research Executive Agency. And the Research Executive Agency, we organise the evaluations to select the best projects, sign the contracts with the beneficiaries, accompany the project teams during the project implementation and make the payments to the beneficiaries. And we then feed the results of the projects back to the Directorates General who are managing the policies of the European Union. And we work very closely with many Directorate Generals, but with three in particular who co-chair this Cluster 6 and who steer the very large exercise that leads to the delivery of the work programme for this cluster: DG Research and Innovation, DG Agriculture and Rural Development and DG Environment. Now, there's a very large team from the European Commission Services and the Research Executive Agency that have put a great deal of energy and dedication in to prepare this event, through which we want to promote the funding opportunities that exist. And I want to already thank them now for all the efforts that they've made, and I hope that you will truly benefit from these information days. Over the 2 days, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a short pitch about every single one of the 82 topics that are included in the Work Programme 2025, which they collectively offer close to 950 million euros of EU funding to support the best actions. There will also be a session entitled Key to Success, which will be focused on guidance to you so that you can produce top quality proposals. And first of all, what we're going to do is to give you an insight into the policy aspects that have led to the creation of this work programme. If you haven't already done so, please have a look at the detailed agenda. You'll find the link on the event webpage. Just also want to mention that there is another important event going on this week, which is an excellent complement to these info days. It's called a brokerage event. It's organised by the national contact points via the EU-funded Care for Bio project. And it's taking place on the 27th of May in Warsaw, in Poland. And it offers networking and matchmaking opportunities. It's very, very useful if you're looking for partners to join a consortium. There are 280 participants. I'm afraid that registrations are now closed, but after the event, it's possible to take part in additional online matchmakings. You'll find more information on the brokerage webpage, and also just take this opportunity to remind you that there are national contact points for this cluster in every member state and associated country, and they are there to help you to find your way through this programme and to look for partners. So later on today, my colleagues are going to explain key aspects about the evaluation of proposals. And that's very important to know when you're preparing your proposals for these topics. The session is called Key to Success, and I'd really encourage you to join it and listen carefully, especially if you're new to the programme, or perhaps if you didn't succeed in the last work programme, because this is your chance to see how you get the best possible chance to succeed in a competitive process. And the average success rate in Cluster 6 so far is about 22%. So you want to give yourself the best opportunity to succeed. Please listen to this Key to Success session. We're looking for high quality proposals. We want to have proposals that offer excellent science and help us to achieve the policy objectives. We want transformative change to the UK economy. We want to reduce environmental degradation, halt and reverse the decline of biodiversity, and better manage natural resources. That's really what we're aiming at in this cluster. And we need your talent and skills to address these challenges. And we want to help you to prepare the best possible proposals. And that's really the aim of these 2 days. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk a little bit about the policy imperatives that are behind, that led to the creation of this work programme. Why are there these topics? Why have we chosen these subjects? And I have a great pleasure to welcome our three speakers for today's session. I'll introduce them to you. You'll see them in a few minutes. We have John Bell, who's the Director of the Healthy Planet Directorate in DG Research and Innovation. Diego Cangofano, who's Director of the Outreach, Quality, Research and Innovation Directorate of DG Agriculture and Rural Development. And Valérie Drezé-Humé, who is the Director of the General Affairs, Knowledge and Resources Directorate of DG Environment. And I'm going to ask them some questions that will give them the opportunity to talk about the policies that they are really focusing on through this work programme. So first of all, I'd like to ask you, John. The new Commission priorities have a clear focus on competitiveness. How do you see the Cluster Work Programme, the Cluster 6 Work Programme contributing to this competitiveness priority?
Good morning, everybody, wherever you are in Europe, and thank you, Paul and Olivia and colleagues, for organising this opportunity today. I think wherever you are in Europe, you know that we're at the start of the next phase of the European Union's addressing the problems that it has to address and the opportunities that are there. Competitiveness is at the centre of what the von der Leyen Commission and the new Parliament has mandated us to do. And research and innovation, and this programme in particular, is a new engine for competitiveness and growth, and it has to do some very difficult things. It needs to get the technology and the solutions and the innovation and the science to deliver the answers that are necessary also for the big systemic changes that we have to make. And this cluster and the work that you will be doing in applying for this cluster is a very important inflection point for the European Union. So this call, this first call of the new Commission, this first call of the new Parliament really is looking in a different policy context. We put in place the Green Deal, which is the architecture for 30 years as to how we are going to, or what it is we need to do across the different Earth systems by 2030, 40 and 50. Now we need to put the means in place to achieve that. So our Green Deal now needs to have its machinery, if you like, to do that. It needs competitiveness, it needs to have decarbonisation. It needs to address what is described in European Union terms as a new compass, which is how are we going to get there? How are we going to reach this place where sustainability becomes a place where people can work, whether in the land, or they're on in the countryside, in the cities, or in industries. And so this word competitiveness is a way of talking about how are we going to get to the goals that we have under this call. It's the kind of language that we use in the call. You will see it reflected when President von der Leyen received her mandate from the Parliament. She set out a number of priorities for this 5-year period, and in two of them in particular you can understand where this thing sits. One is sustaining our quality of life, food security, water and nature, and the other is a new plan for Europe's prosperity and competitiveness. So these are core priorities of the European Union in how we're going to move forward, and that's where this call is sitting. We also know from the report of former President Draghi that we're at a very important moment for the European Union. Not only is this a decade of decision for the planet and for our food and earth and water and other systems that we're dealing with, but we're operating in a new world in which Europe has to be able to compete, has to be able to generate growth, has to be able to support its communities, has to be able to bring key communities, our farming communities, our environmental communities, our research communities, into the centre of this next world, which will be sustainable and also competitive. So we need innovation, we need innovative products and techniques, we need answers at this point. We framed the questions very, very well, and we need the answers and the solutions to happen in Europe, because Europe is a place, of course, where people have to see that working together, we do have the answers in a better way than living in a world which can be sometimes too divided. So in the Work Programme 25, you'll see some of these themes are linking that. If you look at the sustainable and circular transformation, one of the things the European Union has been saying clearly is we're no longer in an extractive throwaway world. We're shifting to a circular economy. We're shifting to an economy that can work within its boundaries. And on a continent like ours, with the resources that we have, this is reflected in the fact that our economy can have a GDP growth of about 0.5% and about 700,000 jobs if we can harness the power of circular economy innovation at all levels. We're also talking about startups. You'll hear a lot of these languages about startups, and it's not, again, either or, it's both. We must get the science and the research to help us to do the systems transitions, but if we don't have the organisations and the companies and the farmers and the different people who make these things happen, we will not get there. So you will see a number of very important policy announcements over the next few months. So while you're designing your calls, it's good to know what is going on in the environment where we're trying to go, because as the calls are being evaluated, people will see, for example, there will be a new start-up and scale-up strategy announced before the summer. And this is about taking the great ideas that we have and moving them up the value chain and turning them into businesses where people live and work, and scaling some of them up to be able to compete on the world stage based in Europe. And this means improving access to finance, markets, people with talent, infrastructures, in a lot of the areas that are in this cluster. This cluster is about a lot of the new parts of the economy that are going to emerge. There's also the world of AI and biotech. I mean, think about the things we're reading about every day. How are we going to harness the power of this to make this journey happen in Europe and happen faster and happen in a more fair and inclusive way? The impact of digitalization and AI, the ability to build a bio-based value chains using the kinds of biotechnology that people are at peace with. And last but not least, you will see our word, this bioeconomy, which is in the title. This has been a pioneering part of this. How do we work with the biosphere and the economy and bring them together in a sustainable way? This is going to be part of a new version of the bioeconomy strategy, which is now moved from niche to norm. It'll be led by the Department for Environment, working with the Departments for Agriculture and Research Innovation together later in the year. So again, there's a public consultation and a call for evidence open on that. So very important moment. What our colleagues, the three of us here, are representing really is this joined up approach to finding the answers that will make the change. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, thank you. I've met a few researchers in Cluster 6 who have said to me, "There's a Green Deal dead." No, it's not dead. It's developing. It's changing, but it's certainly not dead. If I could come to you, Valerie. Cluster 6 was designed as an enabler of the green transition. Now we see the competitiveness compass and the EU Clean Industrial Deal. How do you see the articulation of the Green Deal with these new policies? And do you think we'll see a change in the role of Cluster 6 research?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Paul, for your questions. Yeah, it's a good opportunity to remind, indeed, that when the European Green Deal was set up, it was there to build also the building blocks towards making Europe a climate-neutral continent by 2050. And we tend to forget that already at the time, it was pointed as a growth strategy. So basically, now with the Competitiveness Compact, we have this dimension being even more reinforced by really putting a roadmap to boost this growth and build a more competitive European Union. And in particular, and I think that's very important in that context, to make Europe a place where really you can have clean technologies, clean products that are invented, manufactured, and put on the market in Europe. That's a very important dimension. And of course, it's obvious to say that to do that, you need a vibrant industry. And that's why you need to have solutions to be provided to help them really sustain and work towards this climate neutrality. And this is where you see where fits the Clean Industrial Deal precisely. It will support the modernization of industries, reduce their carbon emissions, support green innovation in sectors, heavy sectors like steel, chemicals, where it's very important to drive them towards this transition. There will be 100 billion to mobilize basically to support this EU-made clean tech, also revise and foster a green public procurement and boost demand for low-carbon products. So basically, and as John said, circularity is also at the very core of this strategy, basically to use these products. And as was said, we had with the Green Deal where to go, and now we're working on how to get there. In 26, as it was mentioned, the Commission will put forward the Circular Economy Act. And I think I'm taking a bit ahead beyond your question that we can see also the articulation that will come with this dimension. And obviously, with all these challenges, Cluster 6 will continue to support really these objectives. And really, it was meant to be an enabler for this transition. And more than ever, it will be important that Cluster 6 plays this role. So you will see during the destination session, basically during these 2 days, how really the 2025 work program builds in all these different elements. And in particular, I want to underline the circular economy and bioeconomy sectors, because it's very important to have to foster innovation activities in this domain and support the implementation of the Clean Industrial Deal. Circular economy objectives, it's a matter of moving forward with a transition, and also the economic power is really immense, and that's important to tap into that. So the topics in the work program for 25 will really support this innovation, advance the development of circular and bio-based material, and the value chain. So basically, it's again a matter of providing solutions to the industries, to citizens, to really help them drive towards this transition, and also have the opportunity to get in novel business models that will help support this transition.
Thank you very much. Diego, the Commission delivered very recently, actually, one of its key milestones for the first 100 days, which was the vision for EU agriculture and food. Many things in that vision, but it does confirm the enabling role of research and innovation in the sector. So what would you consider are the key opportunities offered in this work programme to contribute to the achievement of the objectives of this vision for EU agriculture and food?
Thank you, Paul, and good morning to all the people listening to us in Europe. And first of all, a very warm welcome to all the participants on behalf of DG Agri. It's a true pleasure to open together with my colleagues this year the Cluster 6 Info Days. During the 2 days, we will present in you the Work Programme 2025, and it's an important landmark in our collective efforts to shape the future of research and innovation on food, bioeconomy, agriculture and environment in the European Union. I am pleased to see so many participants connected. With Horizon funding in DG Agri, we are programming research and innovation to improve competitiveness, John said competitiveness, sustainability and resilience of agriculture, forestry and rural communities. Our vision for EU agriculture and food, adopted in February, has been one of the first milestones of the new Commission von der Leyen II. The vision builds on strategic advice provided for the new Commission, notably by the strategic dialogue on the future of European agriculture, plus the Draghi and Letta reports. The vision has bold objectives aiming to achieve 4 things by 2040. First, an attractive agri-food sector where incomes enable farmers to thrive, attracting future generations. Second, an agri-food sector that is competitive and resilient in the face of rising global competitiveness and shocks. Third, a future-proof agri-food sector that is functioning within planetary boundaries. And finally, an agri-food sector that values food, fosters fair working and living conditions, as well as vibrant and well-connected rural and coastal areas. To achieve the vision, we need an enabling environment that places research, innovation, knowledge and skills at the heart of Europe's agri-food economy. Under Horizon Europe, we have already invested 1.8 billion euros in almost 300 research and innovation projects already in agriculture, forestry and rural areas. And in this work programme, this year we have dedicated additional 330 million. With this ambitious budget, we have created funding opportunities for 42 new projects in support of our vision. I hope that these projects will provide useful new knowledge and innovations to help our farmers, foresters and rural communities become more competitive, sustainable and resilient. We need to cover with our actions an agricultural sector that is diverse in terms of sectors, structures and pedoclimatic conditions. Therefore, we are programming across the year in a complementary manner to be able to provide a multitude of solutions that respond to the different needs. In the Work Programme 2025, you can find diverse topics calling for nature-based solutions, new technologies, as well as digital and social innovations. We want to support research and innovation, for example, for climate change mitigation and resilience, and also for the efficient use of agricultural inputs. We have topics focusing on providing consumers with affordable, safe, nutritious, healthy and sustainable food, and other target on the issue of generation renewal in the agricultural sector. In 2025, we are also programming a new research and innovation European partnership dedicated to challenges faced by the forestry sector. As in previous year, we also continue supporting widespread sharing and uptake of research and innovation results in practice. For example, We offer funding opportunities for a new wave of advisory and thematic networks to further strengthen the agriculture, knowledge and innovation systems. Before concluding, I would like to recall that the strength of our work lies on cooperation. We work across Europe and beyond European borders. We continue fostering transdisciplinary and systematic approach, including the multi-actor and One Health approaches. And we do it in an inclusive manner, not only for, but with the end users. That's the key to success. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Coming back to you, John, thinking about life sciences and life science strategy, we have strong agri-food sector, we have strong life sciences in the EU. How do they contribute to EU competitiveness, do you think?
Well, I think as most of you, wherever you are in Europe, looking around at the world at the moment, will see there is one part of the world which is called the European Union, which believes in evidence-based approaches to policy. It believes that science is fundamental to the economy, and it believes that working together, as Diego has just said, is critical to finding the solutions that we need to find in this particular time in our history. And life sciences are central to that. When the Draghi report did a kind of an X-ray of the European economy and its opportunities and needs, this is one area where, although we have tremendous strengths in some sectors, we need to be at the global level in a much stronger position so that both the science is underpinning it, the people who are qualified to do it, and the solutions coming out of it can transform some of the areas and some of the challenges that we have, whether we're talking about health in some cases, or the way in which our agriculture is supported, or the way in which our environment is maintained. So, for the first time in a generation, as part of the response to Draghi, the European Union will be bringing forward a life sciences strategy. The last time we had one, I think, was in 2002. I think, Paul, you and I are old enough to remember that. And in fact, the goal is, with a number of these areas, is to make Europe the best place in the world in which to undertake life sciences, to be the magnet for this really key part of the century ahead, which will be one of life sciences and of digitalization. We need to be able to do both. You've seen also recently President von der Leyen and President Macron launching this initiative to choose Europe and choose science. And it's really what the European Union is about. It is this evidence-based, science-based, cooperation-based, internationally integrated and supportive approach to solving the problems that we have on the globe, and the life sciences will be central to that. So because of that, there'll be a European life sciences strategy that will be launched in the coming weeks. It will do three things. It will strengthen the competitiveness of Europe in the life sciences, looking at the key areas that need to be strengthened or supported or underpinned. It will facilitate how the life sciences need to focus on the green and digital transitions. What are the key leverage points where, if we do it right in Europe, we can make a big step forward in some of the areas that Valerie and Diego have been talking about? It is also about developing high-value technologies. Technologies are going to be a very important part of the narrative for the next few years, because the technologies give us the tools to deliver the change that is there. And of course, the strategy, which I hope will be, we think will be launched on the 2nd of July, is aiming to be a turning point, a kind of convening of policy and science and research innovation to act to maintain competitiveness, to contribute to health and well-being, and to ensure what is called strategic autonomy. In other words, the European Union's ability to stand on its own 2 feet in some of these key areas. And very importantly, environmental quality. What has fundamentally changed in the generation is what the life sciences bring to our ability to achieve our environmental ends. So it's a hugely important area for the European Union. At the moment, it employs around 29 million people in very well-paid high-tech jobs. It's about 14% of employment, generates about a tenth of the European Union's economic growth, with a steady annual growth rate of 4 to 7%. So it's an area where there is more value and more added value coming back to European citizens than in other areas. We will focus on global health, food security and sustainability challenges to underpin these strategic goals of the European Union. So it's a great moment, and that's why this work programme and the goals of this work programme are very important in delivering all of that. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, thanks. Valerie, I'd like to just talk a little bit about biodiversity. So we'll have a new EU biodiversity strategy for 2030, building on the one that we already have. We've also got this very nice EU nature restoration regulation that's been adopted. Nature restoration plans going to have to be delivered. Where are we now with these initiatives in relation to the biodiversity crisis? And what do you expect from research and innovation to support the achievement of the ambitious goals that we've set out?
Well, we are a cornerstone because the nature restoration law entered into force in August 24. Now comes the difficult part, implementation, that things will make the difference on the ground. And as you said, it's really a major milestone of the biodiversity strategy at EU level to halt the loss of biodiversity by 2030. In the meantime, it's also a way for the EU to meet international commitment. We talked about the international context, and it's more than ever important that someone does what he or she said it would do. So indeed, it will allow the EU to meet the Montreal Global Diversity Framework that was adopted in 2022. And in particular, for the target that I mentioned, that by 2030, 30% of areas of degraded ecosystems, both on land and sea, basically, should be under effective restoration. I don't need to recall, I guess, how important nature restoration is to increase the resilience of our ecosystems and of our economies, basically. To go back to what John said, it's also a matter of working on your 2 feet and standing on these 2 feet on that. And we have to tackle all the impacts from climate change and to mitigate also climate change. So we definitely, for such endeavors, need a broad engagement, and especially for this effective implementation of the legislation, research and innovation will be crucial because stakeholders will need to be supported, and they need to have, again, a solution to implement that. And whatever the stakeholders are, whether we talk about administration, whatever also the level they play with, national, regional, very local, because we're talking about nature and ecosystems, of course, the land and sea managers, the farmers, the foresters, the fishers, the urban planners. Well, there's an awful lot of stakeholders that will definitely need support to have tailored solutions to answer to these big objectives. So the 2025 work program that we have will propose all these relevant topics, for instance, to assess or model the ecosystem's dynamic processes, to precisely use as a guide to help restoration activities really play their part and achieve the objectives. Or also the program will support living labs to develop restoration solutions with stakeholders in real condition. That's an important dimension, and adapted to really all the practitioners on the ground. So the implementation of the regulation will also benefit from more fundamental research, because I talked a lot about applicable solutions, but also this dimension is very important. And in particular, there will be projects on the biome taxonomy and in situ biodiversity observations. So, and as John said, evidence-based policy. So we need this evidence to see the benefits of nature restoration, including for the economy, because to fuel the work towards achieving the objectives, you need to show the result, and you need to show really that economy, environmental, and protection of nature can go hand in hand.
Thank you. Yes, we have some fantastic research projects already available to inform nature restoration plans, and I really hope that they are used. Diego, if I could talk to you a little bit about rural communities. So, the vision has identified, you've already spoken about how important rural communities are. How can research and innovation enable the competitiveness of these rural areas, and how do you integrate that into this work programme?
Thank you, Paul. Rural areas cover more than 80% of the European Union, and in terms of population, 2/3 of Europeans lives in cities and 1/3 lives in rural areas. That's a lot of people living in rural areas, and I'm happy to get this question because rural areas deserve our attention. These are territories that host natural and cultural heritage, provide food, energy, as well as ecosystem services for all. The provision of both private and public goods from these territories depend on the resilience and attractiveness of rural areas and the capacity of people who live and work there to attain an adequate well living. I would like to highlight that the vision of agriculture is consistent with the 2021 long-term vision for rural areas. In line with the vision, we want to make our rural areas stronger, connected, resilient, and prosperous. And research and innovation is key to deliver on the vision and improve competitiveness of rural communities. New knowledge and innovation can support important building blocks of competitive rural communities. For example, just to name a few, generation renewal, good living and working conditions, and availability of service and infrastructure. Under the previous work program, we kept investing in research and innovation, supporting competitive and sustainable rural development. On research, for example, we have invested 250 million, have been invested so far, with 60 research and innovation projects on the Horizon Europe from 2021 to 2024 to enhance rural innovation. For example, the recently launched project Storcito is focused on developing innovations that support the creation of climate-neutral rural communities. Among its key initiatives, the project is piloting an inclusive on-demand shared transport app for rural communities. To give you some examples of the current work program, the current work program contains projects that support evidence-based planning and develop innovative solutions to help rural communities to mitigate and adapt to demographic trends. Another example is housing in rural areas. The current work program explores and improves access to affordable, quality housing in rural areas and develop sustainable and climate-smart houses and villages of the future. We propose to do it in an inclusive manner, involving the rural communities in the research and innovation projects and considering the local needs. And these new projects should exploit knowledge created under the previous work programs and deliver impact, making the rural communities stronger, connected, resilient and prosperous, in line with the long-term vision of rural areas. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. John, you're a great supporter of bio-based solutions, I know that. We have a lot of research topics in the work programme here. We also have the Circular Bio-Based Joint Undertaking, which is there to accelerate the innovation and market uptake of bio-based solutions. Do you think that bio-based technologies offer a good prospect for competitiveness of the European economy right across its territory?
Yes, thanks, Paul. And I think it's a very good example of where Europe is already leading. It's an area where investment in things like enzyme technologies, and people think, what have they got to do with anything? But in fact, it's the appliance of science. It's the appliance of science to add value to things that what Diego's been talking about in terms of new value chains that connect up with the transformation of the rural economy. It's a global competitiveness sharp edge that we've developed over the last decade. And it's one of those areas where if we can scale up what we're doing, so it's great to get to the stage of having first-of-a-kind breakthrough biorefineries, but actually what we now need to do is make that an industrial and sustainability norm across our economy and export the technologies and the solutions elsewhere. So it is a success story that's at a critical point now that needs to move forward. It should be based on the European model, which is the circularity of resources, inclusiveness, the empowerment of EU regions, working within our boundaries. And it's a very true in terms of the high-tech aspects where we do have readiness levels that are being tested and demonstrated and proved on the ground. For example, we have what many of you will have heard about, and if you haven't heard about it, go again, check with your national contact points, the Circular Bio-Based European Joint Undertaking. There's a very nice European Union complicated word for talking about a partnership between the public and the private sector to bring these technologies and to develop them on the ground and turn them into new value chains and businesses. In Cluster 6, this part of the framework programme, there are many topics which will be looking for what we call a synergy with the kind of activities that this public-private partnership, the CBE, is doing at project level. So it's a good idea in preparing your projects to check it out and see what that is all about. So to give you an example, on the CBE 2025, which also has a call for project proposals, which has submissions open until the 18th of September, there's a very strong focus on supporting companies in scaling up technologies. There's 5 demonstration topics for 70 million euros. There's a deployment of first-of-a-kind, what are called biorefineries, 4 flagship topics there for 80 million euros in 4 different areas addressing key challenges from technology and environmental points of view. one in bio-waste valorization, and we take waste and transform it into a stream of materials that can be used to develop new solutions. Platform chemicals, which will have a huge effect on decarbonisation and put some of our industries on the right kind of footing for the future. Fibre-based packaging, where there's an enormous opportunity, again, to have an impact on both climate and industry and on the material impact on the economy, and the retrofitting of biorefineries. So this CBEJU has a particular focus on SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. It's a good place if you're a dynamic company to participate, and on the role of SMEs and startups in providing disruptive innovation, new things, and supporting the building of novel funded biorefineries in Europe, in particular, in less developed areas. And this is very important. It's a very important part of the culture of this conversation this morning. It's about getting the economy to grow in parts of Europe that need it most. So 2 examples under the CBE. There are flagship projects, 2 of them in Estonia already. One taking wood residues and turning them into high value-added bio-based products and ingredients at industrial scale. And another one taking this forward and bringing things to market. Next door in Latvia, there's another ongoing CBE flagship project called Viobond, which will create the first commercially viable resin plant, producing formaldehyde resins that will be substituting current petrol-based, fossil-based and formaldehyde with what is called lignin, which is a naturally occurrent downstream raw material for this new industrial chain. They're just 2 examples. The point being, it doesn't matter where you are in the European Union. If you have a good idea and you can get your application together in the right way, you can succeed and build something. And I think this is a very promising area. Thanks, Paul.
Valerie, water. Water issues have never been so important, so delicate with the acceleration of the climate change. We now have a commissioner, Commissioner Roswell, who has water resilience in her title. That's the first time we've seen that. There is an upcoming water resilience strategy. Are we going to see a new vision there? And can we already see this in the work programme for 2025?
Thank you, Paul. Indeed, that's a key element, hence the portfolio of the Commissioner for the first time, as you said. And, well, it seems obvious to say that water is not a resource we can take for granted these days. And we talked earlier about biodiversity. It's very foundation of biodiversity and simply, if I can say that, of our life and also of the stability of our economy. So it supports, it sustains the ecosystem, it supports agriculture, it powers industries also, and it underpins public health, and it's definitely vital for our security and crisis preparedness that has been also very much high on the agenda in the last months. The challenges really that we are facing at EU level on the water resources are extremely visible, and we can see that firsthand, unfortunately, whether it's pollution, the scarce water supply, the extreme weather events through droughts or floods. They are really taking a devastating toll on the water systems, on our health, on our well-being, and indeed our economy. And we see all these linkages all the time that we touched upon earlier. With climate change, well, unfortunately, it's not only that these events are becoming more frequent, it's also that they are more severe, and it's definitely imperative to take action to address them. So indeed, there will be an upcoming water resilience strategy, normally on the 4th of June, so very soon. And the idea to respond to this urgent need will be really organized around 3 components. The first things will be to restore and to protect the broken water cycle. Secondly, to build a water-smart, competitive, and again, circular EU economy. And thirdly, to ensure clean and affordable water and sanitation for everybody, which is quite an objective and important at EU. We're back to the values and how we want to live in the EU, and that was an important dimension to put ahead. We're not starting from zero, I would say, because you have seen over the years that EU water legislations and policy provide really a strong basis towards these objectives. And you have seen also during the previous mandate all the revision of the water acquis, the revision of the drinking water and the wastewater treatment directive, for instance. So definitely we have a robust basis, and the implementation of these texts really help us towards ensuring high quality of our water and sanitation services for the benefit of people and of the environment, obviously. Furthermore, the Commission has proposed a revised list of pollutants for surface and groundwaters. It is now with the co-legislators, so we'll see how this will develop. And I think there is a trilogue today, in fact, about that. So it's a very topical issue. But this will really help us really address all the threats from the substances of concerns. We've all heard about PFAS, microplastics, pharmaceuticals, and pesticides. And obviously, again, in this domain, the relevant research and innovation actions in the work program will help provide new insight and evidence on aquatic pollutions. Moreover, I would say the implementation of the water resilience strategy will rely on several enabling conditions, among which research and innovation will be extremely crucial. So Cluster 6 and this work program for 25 will definitely strongly support this agenda. It will develop solutions to strengthen the resilience of water systems and the water sector to respond to the impacts from climate, but also from global socioeconomic challenges. So the two together and the support, again, of research will be key in that domain. Thank you.
Yes, water is not a resource we can take for granted, absolutely. Even sitting here in Belgium, where we had assumed for many years that we would be able to take it for granted, we're suffering already. Diego, how can the research and innovators, when they're applying for Work Programme 25, ensure that results have impacts on the ground for farmers, foresters, and rural actors? And I guess maybe you'll talk about the multi-actor approach a little bit in your reply. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, I will mention that, Paul. This is indeed key. We need to ensure that results through research and innovation do not remain in a library, but give concrete impact on the ground. That's the first thing my commissioner told me, Christoph Hansen, when I ever met him first message. So deliver on this ambition, a well-functioning agriculture, knowledge and innovation system, ACIS, is needed. Such ACIS ensures that the new knowledge and innovations are accessible, trusted, and applied in practice by farmers, foresters, and rural actors. To support a well-functioning ACIS, the research policy horizon and the common agricultural policy work in close synergy. They support the co-creation and exchange of knowledge and innovation with clear positive impact for farmers, researchers, and citizens. The European Union is promoting an interactive and place-based innovation model in research and innovation projects, for example, with the multi-actor approach that I will explain in a moment, and the living laboratories. So with the multi-actor approach, what we need is that all relevant actors, farmers, advisors, researchers, with complementary backgrounds, should co-create and share knowledge. That's the multi-actor approach. In this year program, a number of topics require the multi-actor approach as an eligibility condition. Living labs, in turn, are real-life sites in which diverse actors should experiment and test solutions in a co-creative manner. However, they not only follow the multi-actor approach focusing on the end-user needs, but also develop solutions that are tailored to the diverse communities in which farmers, foresters, and rural communities operate. I learned in my professional life, farmers listen to farmers. That's very important. Thanks to these approaches, innovative solutions should be truly co-created by researchers for and with the end users, and in places where they live and work. In this way, the gap between research and practice can be bridged, and results can be more quickly and widely developed in practice. On the horizon, we have also funded more than 50 thematic networks that collect, summarize, and widely share new knowledge and best practices. On top of that, an EU Farm Book project develops an EU-wide online platform to bring together all of the tangible outputs of EU-funded research projects in one place for farmers, foresters, and rural communities. Acknowledging the important role of advisors in farmers, I want to mention the EU advisory networks. They facilitate exchange between advisors across the European Union on how to best translate science into practice and share the know-how with practitioners. The innovative solutions also showcase in demonstration farms and so-called lighthouse. Hence, We have also strengthened the role of peer-to-peer learning under both Horizon and CAP as a powerful means to amplify sharing of knowledge and innovation. Also, the strand of the EU CAP Network on Innovation, EIP Agri, supported CAP, fosters collaboration between those with a keen interest in sharing knowledge and innovative ideas for competitive, resilient, and sustainable agriculture. I invite research and innovators to make use of these ACIS activities supported by Horizon and CAP to reach those in need on the ground.
Thank you. Yes, if you are looking at a topic and it says that the multi-actor approach is required, please make sure that you take that very seriously, deal with it very carefully, talk to your national contact points, listen carefully to the information that you received today. We have a lot of cases where it's done well, but a lot of cases where it's not done well, and I think it's been underestimated as an importance for the evaluation. John, if I could just ask you a little bit about the oceans. So the EU is the chair of the All-Atlantic Ocean Research Innovation Alliance. What do you think, also in this work programme, what is our strategy around the oceans, particularly given recent developments in the United States?
I think going back to what Valerie and Diego have been saying, that a lot of what we do in research and innovation, we don't actually, until we see a crisis, we don't actually realise that it shows who we are and what we're about and what it means to work together and find better solutions working together in Europe than being divided and seeking division. The other great thing about Cluster 6 is it sometimes allows you, when you stand back, to see us as the Earth sees us. And one of the things that we see is that the European Union is actually an ocean union. So alongside some of the other things we've been talking about, we are the largest ocean actor on Earth. We have 25 million kilometres of responsibility for what is in effect the richest, most climatically important, biodiversity rich, and a competitively important and security important part of the Earth that we deal with. And it's where about 40% of the population of the European Union are living close by. So it's not some kind of an abstract idea. And we're living in a world in which there are parts of the world where both the value of science and the value of cooperation and the value of actually trying to find an evidence-based approach to some of the problems that need to be unlocked by understanding the ocean, because the ocean is where most of the answers will be found in terms of how we get the water system to work for farming, or predict the weather, or where we're going to build our energy platforms, or how are we going to sequence the DNA of the sea and understand what the next generation of medicines and so forth will be, or how to understand what's going on in the water, that we actually know that our cables are secure and all this. This is a really big part of where the European Union has to be protecting and ensuring competitiveness. But for the scientific corner, it's part of another policy which will be brought forward quite soon, called the European Ocean Pact. So again, this call, as we've seen in what has been raised, the research innovation is this motor to show how are we going to deliver these goals. Now, what Paul has mentioned at the beginning, we love an acronym in Brussels because otherwise people can actually understand what we're talking about. But AORIA, which is the All-Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance, basically for 10 years, our community here in Cluster 6 and the European Union, the research establishment, have been connecting all of the countries from pole to pole, coast to coast, to work together on what is complicated and expensive, which is to build a better understanding of the ocean, its biodiversity, what's going to happen, what we need to know about it, and how we work with it. And more than 1,000 research teams have been funded. We have a collaboration, and in that collaboration, which we've had a number of agreements on, we have a very important a couple of core priorities. One is coastal resilience. Again, what you've heard here, we're very focused on how can our science improve the places that people live. How do we prepare coastal communities? How do we have the kind of ocean observation and modelling? So understanding, as Valerie was saying, knowing what is going on, predicting what might happen next, and then using that to have a way of living with and around the ocean. How can we ensure that sustainable food is coming from the ocean? How can we ensure that one of the challenges of Choose Europe, Choose Science, can we bring through the next generation of researchers in this area quicker so that they're ready to meet the challenges of what's going ahead? Polar cooperation, which is a key part of, some of you will be sitting there probably in the Arctic Circle as you're listening to this, is a key part of what the European Union's responsibility is and part of science. So coastal resilience, Paul, will be a key aspect of what we do in this work programme in 2025. We're building pilot sites in the Atlantic and we will have a big meeting on the 25th and 26th of September. I think quite an inspiring meeting at a difficult moment for international cooperation. So we can serve as beacons on coastal resilience and bring the research and innovation knowledge and share it with our partners north and south, east and west. Now, Paul, you've mentioned the United States situation. I think we all know that one of the things about relationships, scientists build bridges, they don't build walls, and we keep the cooperation going. And part of the cooperation in an area like this is that different partners at different times have to step up and step in and do more and try and keep the show on the road while we're working out how things move forward. With our colleagues in the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, who are going through this big policy shift in the United States side, they need to be supported in the work that we do. And so the European Union in this area, we will be stepping up and we'll be stepping in, and we'll be doing more to ensure that our science-based, evidence-based models and data sets will be ensured. So just for those of you who are wondering, we will ensure that none of the data sets that are critical to this will be lost as part of some unintended consequence. And in the longer term, you will see a new ambition for the European Union in ocean observation, which is the new space race launched in this policy paper, the Ocean Pact, in the weeks to come. So again, science, the difference between optimism and hope is a good plan and the right evidence. And that's why the European Union is stepping up in this space. And in Cluster 6, this contribution, I think, will be definitive. And you will read it against what you will see and hear from the President at the UNOC, the Ocean Summit in June, where President Macron and President von der Leyen are busily setting out this new ambition. In brief, we have to move from being, in research and innovation, a warehouse of enlightened publication to a lighthouse of enlightened answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know you were at the basis of this this whole alliance and the all-Atlantic business at the time. Valerie, if I just come back a little bit to the Bioeconomy and Circular Economy Act particularly, how do you see these initiatives capitalising on the research that we've already funded, and how can future research support them?
Well, we've already said that the bioeconomy is really a sector which is expanding rapidly, and it has still ahead of it a huge potential to grow even further. So, and the connection with EU research is very important here, because thanks to that, we really now have the knowledge and the assets to become a world leader at EU level in bio-based materials and chemicals. So really accelerating Europe's bioeconomy is also responding to challenges we have mentioned before, circularity, and the fact also of maintaining EU autonomy in the global supply chain. So we are at the core and the cornerstone of these different objectives, basically. So it's very also important to to achieve the climate neutrality, and this bioeconomy will be really a key dimension in that. And it's very important through research and others to invest in sustainability of the bioeconomy. Healthy ecosystems obviously are the backbone of this bioeconomy. We already discussed about the biodiversity. Really, if our soils, our water and our forests and our farmlands are today not in a very good state. We all know that. We have seen the research and the facts from different reports on that, and in particular the European Environment Agency. But yet we depend very much on these ecosystems. So, and this will not go away in the future. It will be, in fact, more and more, this dependency. So for that, we really need, as I said, to first have a solid implementation of the nature restoration regulation, and also to drive the change we need, as well also on the soil. I think it was mentioned the importance of the soil is very crucial. There is a monitoring law that will help us also monitor the state, the evolution, and address and adapt the measures to respond to this declining state. So, and you heard about this joint undertaking on the circular bio-based joint undertaking. I'm sure, really, that it will continue to play a key role in funding the projects to advance, really, these competitive circular bio-based industries. It will ensure the synergies, the complementarities with the topic under the destination circular economy and bioeconomy sectors of Cluster 6 work program. As I mentioned before, we also need innovation to move to a circular economy, which will lower the production cost, again, we're back to the economy, reduce waste and emissions, and really create an industrial model that can benefit both the environment and our economic competitiveness. And that will be exactly what the Circular Economy Act will do, and it will really boost these dimensions. So these are two key areas for this commission, and we would like to make sure this stays, but the research will really help us to sustain this important dimension. The work program for 25 will ensure that what is at the heart of our policies, basically, it's also at front and center of the research and innovation. And this connection is very key. We're not doing policies for the sake of policies, and we need to connect the solution exactly with the policies and the objectives we have to do that. So it includes topics that will enable the circular economic transition, produce innovative and sustainable bio-based, biotechnology, and bioeconomy sectors. So successful application will develop their project, and their result will definitely feed in our policy support to deliver a comprehensive response to achieve sustainable competitiveness, hopefully.
So Valerie, John, Diego, thank you very much for those answers. The people listening, we know that research is a long-term process. There's been many work programs that are coherent amongst themselves, but you will have heard today that there are developments, continuous developments in the policy, and you should be aware of that when you're making your application. You have heard there's a little bit more emphasis on competitiveness, strategic autonomy this year, perhaps compared to previous years. We still are looking for knowledge. We're still looking for increasing knowledge. We're still building an evidence base for many of the things that we're doing. But you will see a little bit more emphasis on solutions now. A little bit more evidence on solutions coming through. Please keep that in mind when you're applying. We are moving from the policy defines what the work program is, but the work program is then feeding back for the development of policy. That's what we're aiming at. Please keep that in mind when you're applying. I'm going to close this session now. We will restart at 10:15 with the session on key to success, which I'll very much recommend to all of you. We want to help you make the very best proposals. We cannot do it without you. You're so important to what we're doing. Thank you very much for listening this morning, and enjoy the next day and a half. Thank you very much.